Your feet, all my broken pieces, every load that's carried at your feet, all my broken pieces, every load that's carried.
My name is Candace Blanks, and I'm talking to those people who have been afflicted, abused, rejected, feeling unloved, or just simply gone through life and don't have a way out. Or maybe you have been diagnosed with an illness. Well, I'm here to tell you that God is here for us, and He is healing the broken. So please tune in every day to Healing for the Broken as various people tell and share their heart and testimony. You're watching Healing for the Broken, where I'm your host, Candace Blanks. And on today's show, we have an awesome man of God, Mr. Errol Sweat, who is going to actually come on and tell us his life story of how God brought him out. And he's going to also talk to us about his latest book, I Messed Up, but the church let me down. We'll be right back.
How will you feel when you know that someone is praying and interceding for you every day? That is how we hold our partners with high esteem, standing in the gap and praying for you without season. NDTV is God's plan to transform lives and help people to get their freedom from every form of oppression, walk in victory, discover their original destiny and the plan of God for them. Together, we can do far more than any of us could ever do alone. Become a partner today by visiting www.ndtvn.com/partnership, and you will be glad you did.
This network has been a blessing to you. Why not follow us on Facebook and Instagram at NDTV Network? Subscribe to our YouTube channel New Dimension TV. Or watch us live at www.ndtvn.com. For partnership, prayers, and sponsorship, call 833-777-NDTV. Email info@ndtvn.com. NDTV, bearing fruits everywhere, changing lives.
Your feet, all my broken pieces, every load that's carried.
Welcome back to Healing for the Broken. Thank you, Mr. Errol, for coming on the show.
Appreciate you for having me.
You're welcome. I had such an awesome time talking with you, getting to know you. And so now the people who are watching are going to get to know you. And so just tell us more about who you are and what has happened in your life until this point.
Well, I was always had a fascination with engineering and everything related to engineering.
Okay.
But along the way, God arrested my attention and pulled me into the church, where I fell in love with Jesus. I certainly, just enjoyed the people of God, worshiping with them, serving along with them. One of the things I used to do in the church is we had 3 different services. I'd walk down every pew, down every aisle, shake every hand. I might not remember a person's name, but best believe I remember their story. And when I can bring up their story and share with them what we last talked about, they look at me like, I can't believe you remember that.
Yeah.
I wanted them to know that you are special. And if you ever come into my environment, into my immediate space, you felt like you on top of the world because I talked into your situation, and I wanted you to know that not only did God love you, but I love you too. And so I worked that vein for so long, and I got to know so many people, serving them in so many different capacities. And that's why the church meant so much to me, because I saw the love not only shared, but also received.
Oh,
yes.
Amen. So in the church, you was like, you were giving love, people were receiving love, but they was giving back.
Absolutely.
To you.
Absolutely.
So you was very important, and the church was important to you.
Absolutely.
So,
Absolutely.
So you was like, listen, this is it. This is my church home. This is everything that I needed.
Absolutely.
At
Absolutely.
that time.
You know, the church to me becomes family.
Oh yeah.
This is where I spent the majority of my time. This is where I loved on the people and were loved by the people. And I got to know a whole lot of names, a whole lot of situations, a whole lot of families, serving them in different capacities, whether going to weddings or funerals or celebrations of any kind. And so these people became my family, and I was a part of their family. And anytime you have the dynamics of family, man, you have ups and downs and highs and lows, but rest assured that they are family nevertheless. They're family, yeah. And it was a beautiful thing.
Okay, so what happened? Like, what changed that family love, that everything that you guys had going on? What changed?
That's a very good question. I think I remember to the day I'm standing in the middle of the street. I lived in a cul-de-sac, and I said to my pastor on the phone call, "Don't forget me." And knowing him, I could hear in his voice saying, "What do you mean? Don't forget me?" And what I was saying to him is, when you establish your team at the church and build the ministries, I want my opportunity to be on staff, even though I'm working for this job and I'm loving it and it's affording me the privileges of life. I want to do more for God, and I want to work in the church to where I can do this full time.
Okay.
And sometimes, even when we want the very best, it's not necessarily our time. We're not mature enough spiritually. And I don't want to use that as an excuse, but I believe that there was counsel that needed to be had on my account. I did not take advantage of. And whenever you are put in a situation to do God's work, there are certain things that you need to have to be equipped with in order for you to serve the people in a capacity that you need to serve them in. Because what happens when you get to the door of your home and you're steady getting phone calls and you're being pulled in different directions, and if you're not careful, you don't guard your time, your family time, with prayer and simply saying no, you will be consumed by the church and all of its needs, to the point where you'll forget your own need. Wow. And when you forget your own need and you forget to pray and spend that consecrated time with God, it will wipe you out.
And you know what? That is a good point that you made, because a lot of times, especially when you're working in the church and you're volunteering in the church, a lot of your time do go to the church. And I know one of the things that my pastor always talked about is that your first ministry is your wife or your husband.
Absolutely.
And so when my husband and I got married, you know, we were learning how that we're actually each other's first ministry.
Absolutely.
You know, and then it's everything else, because at one point of time, my husband and I, we were doing constant volunteer work.
Yes.
We was actually hosting events ourselves. I mean, like every weekend we were hosting events, and it was like the kids were like, okay, getting burnt out.
Yes.
The kids were like,
Yes.
okay, it's another event, you
Yes.
know, but we was like, we're doing God's work.
Yes.
You know how everybody
Yes.
like, hey, I'm doing God's
Yes.
work, so I should be able to do all of these things, but God is looking like, I need order. I need you to be in order.
Absolutely.
And when you are out of order, then those things don't line up.
Yes.
And so what you were talking about is, yes, your ministry first is the
Yes.
family, and then it's to the church. But if you don't be careful, it can lopside, and you do more
Yes.
in the church,
Yes.
and then your family is neglected in some sense.
Absolutely.
You know?
Absolutely. I was pastor over the marriage. I was pastor over the mercy ministry.
Wow.
And with that, I not only covered premarital, postmarital, we did activities of different kind, enrichments. With the mercy ministry, we served at funerals, certainly weddings, anything else that was needed for the people in our church. There were, 2,500 to 3,000 members. Everything that they needed, they could call on Sweat to get it done. I don't care if somebody needed to move and they needed a truck.
Yeah.
Sweat to the rescue. I mean, pulled in all different directions. I was
Yeah.
the resident counselor. I had gone through training, serving people God's way, as well as, or should I say, caring for people God's way. And Marriage Works, which was this organization, American Association for Christian Counselors, offered these curriculums, and I went through them successfully so that I can better reach the people in our congregation. But it got to be too big for me.
Wow.
So if you can imagine the pastor and I trying to reach 3,000 people, I mean, the odds were ridiculous. And so we set up a class, and we trained 40 different individuals to help with the counseling so that we can reach the people in every capacity that they had needs in, with the exception of psychiatric treatment. And so it was just so much going so many places, and you cannot do so many things well. Pick a few, do them well, and to God will be the glory.
Oh yes.
Yes.
And you keep mentioning marriage.
Yes.
So you're married, of course.
I'm married, yes, 23 years of
23
marriage.
years
Yes.
of marriage.
My best friend in life. We've been friends for 40 years. She's an awesome woman of God. Love her to death, and we love marriage. We
Amen.
love relationships. Yes.
Okay. So you're very, very well involved in the church.
Absolutely.
And everybody was calling on Mr. Sweat
Absolutely.
to get the job done, and by the grace of God, he gave you strength
Yes.
to do those things. So in the meantime, what is going on? You was talking about being involved in the church, and you got a lot going on, and so it seemed as if your marriage being hindered by all this work that you were doing in the church, or talk to us more about.
I think what happens sometimes is when you are fully saturated in the works of God.
Mhm.
Make no mistake about it, Satan is lurking about, seeking to whom he can rob, steal, and destroy. And if you're not careful, he will come into your situation and take over. No matter how equipped you were or unequipped you were, or how busy or idle you are, Satan still seeks to kill, steal, and destroy. And because I was doing a great work,
Yeah.
he sought to kill me quickly
Wow.
and often, because I was a witness for God and I was in the face of others and helping them in so many ways. Now I want to get to you so that you won't do the things that you're doing for God, for his glory. I want to turn this situation around and get some of the glory for myself. And if we're not careful, we will allow Satan to come in and do just that.
Wow.
Steal God's glory and rob us of the joy of life.
Wow.
One day at a time, one situation at a time, one person at a time, he seeps right in.
Seeps right in. Well, we're going to pause there, and we're going to be right back after these messages. And when we come back, Mr. Sweat is going to talk to us more about why he messed up and the church let him down. We'll be right back.
And interceding for you every day. That is how we hold our partners with high esteem, standing in the gap and praying for you without season. NDTV is God's plan to transform lives and help people to get their freedom from every form of oppression, walk in victory, discover their original destiny and the plan of God for them. Together, we can do far more than any of us could ever do alone. Become a partner today by visiting www.ndtvn.com/partnership, and you will be glad you did.
Are you looking for a professional, affordable and reliable video coverage for your event? Then, talk to us today at NDTV. Our production team are on ground 24 hours for your corporate and church events.
With our modern equipment and unbeatable online presence,
we can live streaming your event on every social media platform to give you maximum audience and worldwide publicity.
Contact us for your next event and receive 50% discount. Call +1 833 ndtv. Visit www.ndtvn.com. Email us, events@ndtvn.com.
We can also handle all your video production projects, including gospel music video production and editing.
Call +1 833 ndtv. Visit www.ndtvn.com. Quality, professional, and customer satisfaction guaranteed.
Welcome back to Healing for the Broken, where we have Mr. Errol Sweat, who is the author of I Messed Up, But the Church Let Me Down. And if you have not tuned in, you have missed the treat, but he's going to also talk to us more about why he messed up. So, Mr. Sweat, why did you mess up? What made you have this title of this book?
You know, that's a good question. I think that when you look into the lives of individuals who are in the church, I believe, without a shadow of a doubt, that every one of us at one time or another in our Christian walk have thought that, but perhaps would never express it. And initially, when I had an indiscretion in my marriage, I'm going to be candid with you, transparent, in hopes that it would help someone. I had an indiscretion in my marriage. I engaged and encountered a woman who was not my wife. And I spent time with this lady, and I enjoyed the time. And along the way, there were people who saw us in the public, and you would think that that would be flags that would impede our progress together as we grew closer and closer together in intimacy, in intimate conversations and time together. You would think that that would have been enough. One encounter after another, yet another encounter, now the third and the fourth. And yet we did not stop from seeing each other, spending time, calling each other on the phone. And lo and behold, the pastor finally sees us. And he sees us unbeknownst to us. He has heard some of the things that have taken place. He sees it for himself. And now he can create his own narrative because he has a glimpse into this situation for himself. So upon seeing this, he didn't tell us about it. It began to erode and tear down my marital bond. Anytime you give that kind of attention and that type of time to another individual, the one who is left in the dark and hurting is not necessarily the one that needs to be there. It happened to be my wife, the one that I said I loved. And so he came and he sat with us and he asked the question whether or not I wanted my ministry and my marriage. And me in my arrogance, I'm sitting there and I said, I don't know if I want one or the other.
Wow.
Boastfully almost.
Wow.
Ignorantly, I stated that. And when he finally decided to make a decision, he had told me to go away for a couple of weeks, come back, make a decision, let's talk. I went away, I came back, I never said a word to him. I never said a word to him. I continued to work. And this thing was coming to a head in the backdrop. I didn't even know what was going on. And finally, he summoned us to his office, my wife and I. And he said he knew what was going on. He had records to see. And it was time for me to give up my position as staff pastor. My heart dropped to my feet. And I'm trying to pull myself together in this setting. I can't understand what's going on. And so immediately I'm thinking, yes, I messed up. And I had no idea what the church letting me down would look like at that moment. And when he said to me, I want you to share with the church in 3 services that you are going away to spend time with your family, and you will no longer be a part of the church anymore. I sat there in silence. I had to allow the process to take place. I didn't want to add fuel to the fire by being cantankerous or going against anything that he had to say.
Yeah.
And at the same time, I'm looking at my wife and I'm saying, I can only imagine what she's going through because she had no clue of any of this.
Wow.
I felt like a lamb being led to slaughter in all of this exchange. And then I came to grips, if I feel like a lamb, what does she feel like?
So you started to care at this time. Because you said you was kind of arrogant earlier.
Yes.
So you started to kind of care.
Yes,
now?
the true arrow that's a loving and caring person, that spirit of arrow woke up in that moment.
Wow.
But perhaps it woke up because I had been caught. Perhaps if I had never been caught, I would have never been awakened to that moment. And so I'm trying to prepare for this.
Yeah.
This was a Monday, Tuesday, September of 2006. Now I'm approaching the weekend when I have to make this announcement. My birthday is coming up, September the 30th, which was that Saturday. And I'm sitting now in my apartment by myself because I had left my home and my wife and child after having been in that setting where I was exposed. I thought that my wife no longer wanted me. So I left my home. I packed all of my clothes like a straight wimp, like someone who did not have God in their life or knew him. I vacated my home and my responsibilities.
Wow. So what was your state of mind when you were caught? Like, in the sense of, your state of mind and your wife's state of mind. Did she ever say anything to you in this process?
So my state of mind in the moment when I was exposed, as anybody was when they exposed, whether you're a child or an elderly adult, your heart immediately drops to your stomach. Mine went beyond my stomach to my feet. And out of respect for the moment and the people present, I did not say anything. Because I didn't, again, want to add more to the situation. At that point, I needed to be humbled. Because in humility, I needed to learn a lesson immediately in real time.
Wow.
I needed to learn a lesson.
Yeah.
And when we made our way back to the house in separate cars, upon reaching the house, I got there before she did. And I packed all of my stuff because now the humility turns into humiliation.
Wow.
And because I'm humiliated, I'm thinking she wants me to leave. Again, I'm not owning up to my responsibility and staying there and not embracing necessarily the fire that would come, but at least owning up enough to say, I deserve whatever she gives me. I packed my bags. She came in. We talked. We threw, words of hurt towards one another. She's a godly woman. And even in the midst of that, she maintained her godliness and her strength. To the point where she said, if you want to go, go. And I'll be all right because I know God has me. Even when you are a coward and you will relinquish your responsibilities, I will be all right. So go. And I left. And my head dropped right then because that was a hard moment for me. I found myself sleeping in my truck in a parking lot, and I didn't have to be there. When you are exposed, you'll find yourself in places that you don't want to be, nor do you have to be.
Let's talk right there.
Yes.
When you are exposed, you find yourself in places where you don't want to be and you don't have to be. See, so many people have created problems for themselves.
Yes.
And they feel like it's somebody else's, or somebody else did it to them, should I say. So you smell it. Why you smell it?
I like that because we do. We feel that someone else has done something wrong to us. And so that's where the thought, I messed up, but the church let me down. And maybe I'm jumping ahead because I'm eventually get to that.
Yeah.
But we do. And whenever we get to the point where we are blaming others,
Oh, Jesus.
others have enough to deal with of their own.
Yes.
And when I have to take your responsibilities on my back along with my own, I'm weighted down by the crux of the world. And now you want to put your mess on me too? I got enough mess of my own.
Exactly.
And so now I begin to play the game. I begin to play the blame game.
So you became entitled.
I almost entitled. Yes, entitled. Yes, entitled. I began to play the blame game, and it was everybody else's fault but mine.
Wow.
Now I'm having to go in front of the church to share with my family that I can no longer be a part of serving you, loving on you, and being loved by you. I stood at that pulpit, and that was the single most challenging thing I ever had to do in my life.
Wow.
I stood there, and I'm wondering, what in the world can I say? Normally when a preacher is at the pulpit, he's looking for an individual or individuals that he can make eye contact with so that he can see a smile to encourage him. How could someone be encouraged when I have to stand up and say, I messed up, I cheated on my wife, and now I have to leave the very people that I love, the people that I know without a shadow of a doubt that God put me here. Now I have to leave them.
Okay, so let's talk about that. Now, you're not just a church goer. You are the pastor in the church.
I am a staff pastor. I'm not the lead pastor.
But you're still in a position to lead the sheep.
Yes, I'm in a leadership position.
So nowadays, so many people, that's their excuse why they don't go to church. Because if they might be somebody watching now. They might say, oh, see, that's why I don't go to church, because pastors, they sit here and do all of that stuff.
Yes.
But I say that you're human.
Yes.
And God says not to put your trust in no man. So in saying that, how was it as being a pastor, what can you say to those people who have that mindset of, well, see, that's why I don't go to church, because pastors are hypocrites. They doing stuff that they don't have no business doing, and this, that, and the other, because they use that excuse why they don't do it.
Yes, that's a good question.
Yes.
That's a good question. So I look at you straight into the camera and I say to you, I messed up. And though I was a staff pastor, it's no excuse. Not only for me, but for you. Don't allow me or any other man to keep you from developing a loving relationship with God. Don't let us keep you from experiencing God's best here on earth because we messed up. Don't let us keep you from a better place in heaven because we messed up. Now, before you get too big in your pants, let me say this to you. I'm owning up to my responsibilities. I'm telling you that I messed up, that I did wrong. And I hope somewhere in your heart of hearts that you can at least appreciate that I'm able to say that I messed up. And we'll talk later on how I transitioned from blame to ownership. Is that okay?
Yes.
So again, don't let my mess up keep you from God's very best.
Amen. I couldn't say it better. When we're going to take a break and we'll be right back, and we're going to talk more about I messed up, but the church let me down. We'll be right back.
That someone is praying and interceding for you every day. That is how we hold our partners with high esteem, standing in the gap and praying for you without season. NDTV is God's plan to transform lives and help people to get their freedom from every form of oppression, walk in victory, discover their original destiny and the plan of God for them. Together, we can do far more than any of us could ever do alone. Become a partner today by visiting www.ndtvn.com/partnership, and you will be glad you did.
If this network has been a blessing to you, why not follow us on Facebook and Instagram at NDTV Network? Subscribe to our YouTube channel New Dimension TV. Or watch us live at www.ndtvn.com. For partnership, prayers, and sponsorship, call 833-7777-NDTV. Email info@ndtvn.com. NDTV. Bearing fruits everywhere, changing lives.
Welcome back to Healing for the Broken, where we have Mr. Errol Sweat, who's talking to us more about his latest book, I Messed Up, But the Church Let Me Down. And so we talked about why people don't go to the church and the excuses they use to why they don't. And I thank God for you telling the people, don't let somebody stop you from missing out on your blessing that God has for you. So talk to us more about, why did the church, or did you say the church let you down?
Yeah, and again, that's the prevailing thought in the beginning. When I made those 3 announcements at 3 different services, and I had to push back the tears of sharing with my church family that I could no longer be a part of their lives. It felt like death. I didn't know, though, if it was me dying or if they were dying. All I know is it felt like death. And having to share this 3 different times, it was the most challenging thing I ever done in my life. And when I finally made it through that, somehow I found myself driving home in a cloud and even floating up 3 flights of stairs to get to my empty apartment, and I fell on the floor. I fell on the floor and I crawled up into a fetal position, and I began to sob and weep, not because of what I had done, but because I could no longer share with the people I love and the people that loved me. I felt my body decaying and the stench of rigor mortis filling the atmosphere. I felt like I was dying in the moment, a slow death. And it was hours that I laid on this floor crying, as to say, can anything or anybody rescue me from this moment? The moment that I made, the moment that I messed up. The preacher, the minister, the reverend who went rogue. How can I recover from this moment? When I laid there, I thought about my mom who died at a tender age of 30 years old. And it felt tantamount to the death of my mom. That's the kind of pain that I felt in that moment. And I eventually arose from the floor, a shadow of who I really was. The person that arose was not the person who laid on the floor.
So what do you mean by that?
What I mean is the arrow that was of a gregarious nature, a loving person, a person that served the church and loved on them. When I laid on the floor, I woke up with a different attitude, with a different demeanor. Even though I was hurting, now my thought was, who can I hurt in response?
Oh, wow.
Because you do know that hurt people hurt people.
Exactly. And so that's my next question. So you was like, listen, I know I messed up. I had to, I feel embarrassed. I feel all kinds of things. And I have to say it, I had a scarlet letter on me. And so now you was like, listen, I'm about to get even. This is not it, right? This is like, listen, I'm hurt, so I'm about to hurt somebody else.
Because now I started hearing stories, right? And you know how stories go. When you begin to share stories, when it leaves you and goes in this perpetual movement and finally get back to you, the story is never the same from the way it started. So now I'm sitting here and I'm listening to people telling me stories about me and I don't even recognize the story. And I'm asking them, wait a minute, who are you talking about? They say, I'm talking about you. This is what I heard about you. I'm like, wait. Where'd you get that from?
Wow.
So now they're trying to, I wouldn't say they're trying to hurt me even more than what I was already hurt, because they didn't know how much I was hurting. I think they were just sharing because, when that became a juicy story, if you will.
Oh, yeah.
And
a lot of gossip.
Absolutely. And so I had to, try and gather myself oftentimes when I'm in these conversations. And eventually my disposition became vulgar. I was a Christian. I was a minister. I was a loving husband at one time, a loving dad. But F you and everybody else if you wasn't with me and on the understanding in which I was. I may not have said the actual word. Maybe I did every now and then. But rest assured, that was my disposition.
At that time?
At that time.
Okay, so what was your disposition about the church? Because you said that they let you down.
Listen. I love my church no matter what. I love my church. It is the greatest church that I've ever experienced in my life. And even though the statement is, I messed up, but the church let me down, was an initial sentiment. And sometimes, the audience, I hope you can understand this. We pull up a chair and we perch piously in front of a window, looking out at everybody and what they're doing. It's easy to point the finger at somebody else and say what they've done and not own up to your own responsibility.
Oh, yeah.
So now I'm going to the blame game. I'm blaming everybody else for what I did and not owning up to it. And I have to hurry up and transition from the blame. When I finally got to the understanding that I needed to move from beyond the window and transition in front of a mirror.
Wow.
It's there in front of that mirror that I finally was able to see me for who I was. And I'm going to tell you something. When you look at you for who you are, nobody can be more critical on you than you.
Wow.
And so, yes, the thought was I messed up, but the church let me down. That's when I sat in front of the window. When I transitioned in front of the mirror, I got an understanding that I messed up, period.
Nobody else.
Period.
Just period.
I own that. Now, let me tell you something, if I can. I messed up, but the church let me down does not speak ill of one single individual, nor does it speak ill of the church as a whole. But there are a lot of people in Christendom who say that they have messed up and the church let them down. They don't go to church anymore. They don't worship anymore. They don't serve anymore. They blame everything on everybody else. And if they're not careful, they'll blame it on God. And I'm here to tell you, you have to go from blame to ownership. And it's an ownership.
Talk to us.
Because I believe that the mirror will serve as a change agent if you allow it to. And when you allow God to change you, baby, you are changed indeed. You are changed for the better, and no one can dispute the change that God works in your life. And when I understand that I have changed and that I now can see myself for who I am, I can write a book in the right spirit to encourage others to understand that you may have messed up, but you don't have to stay in your mess. Allow your mess to become your ministry.
Glory
And that's
God.
what I'm
Yes.
trying to do on today.
Yes.
From this day forward, is to allow my mess to become my ministry.
Amen.
I don't have to stay in that mess any longer. And guess what? You don't have to stay there neither. You can move beyond your mess and make it your ministry. And so I encourage you on the day to
Glory
go
God.
beyond.
Thank you,
Go
Jesus.
beyond that window and look into that mirror and allow it to change you. And God can do it, because this is what happens. This is what happens.
How?
Sometimes we want to change our situations and let God leave us the same. Change my situation, change the backdrop of what I'm in and all the mess that is around me, but leave me the same. And I want you to know that God is not in the business of leaving you the same and changing your situation. He wants to change you in the midst of your mess, and then between you and He, you all together can change the backdrop, particularly the landscape of your life.
Amen. And I know we're coming to a close, but what about forgiving?
That's a beautiful segue.
So,
Because
did you-
I believe
yes.
that after you go from the window to the mirror, forgiveness is on the way. But don't get caught up in forgiving someone independently of them, because you can't do that. You can say to yourself, I've forgiven them, never again to say a word to them. And that's not the true essence of forgiveness. We'll even say, I forgive you, but I don't forget. The true essence of forgiveness is saying, I forgive you for what you've done. In certain relationships, we even ask for forgiveness when we haven't done any wrong.
Yes.
But beyond forgiveness even is reconciliation.
Amen.
What if God only forgave us and never reconciled us back to Himself through Christ Jesus? And so the book takes you through a transition. You go from blame to ownership to forgiveness and ultimately reconciliation.
Amen.
The same pastor that I felt had let me down, we now have established a great relationship with one another, because forgiveness became a part of our package.
Yes.
Forgiveness clothed us to where we can move beyond the mess and move towards something that's greater, so that both of us can share this story and say what God did on the positive side. When I go back, we give each other the biggest bear hugs, because we show love for one another, not only in forgiveness, but also in reconciliation.
Amen.
And reconciliation says it all, because that's the true essence of Christian relationship. We are built on a reconciled relationship. And to God be the glory when we can reconcile our relationship.
Amen. Glory to God.
Yes.
So how can someone purchase your book and find information about you?
Yes. So I'm so grateful for this opportunity, for Candace for allowing me to come onto her show to be able to share. So I have created a website, www.landscapesoflife.org, because I believe that every one of us have a unique situation in life that governs, that alters, that shapes the landscape of our lives. Amen. So you can go there, as well as Amazon, Barnes & Nobles, Half Price Books, and my publishing company, Dorrance Publishing. Now that's www.dorrancepublishing.com.
Well,
yes.
Praise God.
Absolutely.
Well, to everyone who's watching, I pray that God pierce your heart if you will help being in a situation like Mr. Sweat, and you just say, you know what? I messed up. Yeah. And you know what? I'm going to take ownership of what my situation is. Or you might say, you know what? That has happened. I've been out of church for a long period of time. You know what? His testimony has really pierced my heart to say I need to get back in tune with God first and in tune with the church and start forgiving and taking ownership of my actions. So you can definitely keep watching us on www.ndtvn.com and also on YouTube at New Dimensions TV. Thank you for watching. I appreciate everyone who's out there. God loves you and I do too. Have a blessed day.
That someone is praying and interceding for you every day. That is how we hold our partners with high esteem, standing in the gap and praying for you without season. NDTV is God's plan to transform lives and help.
Are you looking for a professional, affordable and reliable video coverage for your event? Then, talk to us today at NDTV. Our production team are on ground 24 hours for your corporate and church events.
With our modern equipment and unbeatable online presence,
we can live streaming your event on every social media platform to give you maximum audience and worldwide publicity.
Contact us for your next event and receive 50% discount. Call +1 833 NDTV. Visit www.ndtvn.com. Email us, events@ndtvn.com.
We can also handle all your video production projects, including gospel music video production and editing.
Call +1 833 NDTV. Visit www.ndtvn.com. Quality, professional and customer satisfaction guaranteed.
If this network has been a blessing to you, why not follow us on Facebook and Instagram at NDTV Network? Subscribe to our YouTube channel New Dimension TV. Or watch us live at www.ndtvn.com. For partnership, prayers, and sponsorship, call 833-777-NDTV. Email info@ndtvn.com.